up at MyBookie and use our promo code Gators to get your first ever deposit match dollar for dollar. Bet anything, anywhere, anytime with MyBookie.
Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month, get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shoutouts, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to GatorsBreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today. Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Coming at you on this Sunday, game review time, Florida, Tennessee. Gators take down the Vols 38-14. Clunky performance, I think overall we can say that, but a good performance nonetheless there. Anytime you can beat Tennessee 38-14, I mean, you take a score like that. As I said, clunky performance. Emory Jones continues to show some improvement. Running attack continues to pile up some yards. Defense, big plays, but besides that, okay performance. They're going against that up-tempo offense, and we know that up-tempo offense gives Todd Grantham some troubles. Big plays in the first half. Tennessee gets shut out in the second half. 14 points total, all 14 points in the first half. So, of course, there's good, there's bad to take away from the performance from the Gators, but 38-14 victory over the Tennessee Vols. The Gators get their first SEC win of the season, and this one's an SEC East win, of course, over the Vols. And the week after the Alabama game, wondered about the hangover, wondered all that good stuff of playing Alabama. What do you do the next week? How do you perform? We'll get into it a little bit, of course, what that means, a fast start for the Gators. They get off to a fast start anyway, but it didn't last long. So there we go. It was a fast start and nothing really more when you look at the first half of the game there. So, of course, I mean, the storylines, injuries come into that a little bit too. But before we get there, big shout out to everybody. Tailgate was awesome. Harmonic Woods, again, thanks to those guys. Plenty of you stopped by, said hello, got some pictures, hung out with a lot of you there at the tailgate, on the way to the stadium, in the stadium, all that good stuff. Just a big thanks to Tony Aguilini. I went as a fan this time, not sitting in the press box. So Tony sat with him and his dad. A really, really good time. There. So you probably heard my voice a little bit. So I was more of a fan yesterday, always a fan, but I have to kind of dial it down in the press box, not in the stands, of course. Gator chomping, hollering, high-fiving, clapping. I can't get away from that. I'm still, look, you guys know, a Gator fan first. But, I got to split it up with the podcast. I understand the responsibility here I have for you guys and with myself with this podcast, but I'm not going to get away from being a fan either. So a lot of fun there, tailgating in the stands with the fans as well. So fellow fans as well. So once again, thanks for Tony there and everybody stopping by tailgate, saying hello, taking pictures. I get conversations there from people at the tailgate saying they talk about the podcast at Spurrier's the night before, and that happened last week for the Alabama game as well, and all that good stuff. So everybody who talks about the podcast with their friends and people say they end up knowing me or tailgate and all that kind of stuff, the word gets out that how much you guys appreciate it. I appreciate you so much. So thank you. All right, here we go. Let's get into it. Of course, Florida, Tennessee, no AR, no Elam. There was the injury concerns coming into the week. I let you guys know it was not a big secret there, but Elam toward the later parts of the week, maybe a little bit on Wednesday, but mostly Thursday, Friday, that Elam probably was not going to play versus Tennessee. Did not even dress out, was unavailable. Avery Helm and Jason Marshall were announced as the starting cornerbacks in the pregame, and that's what we got. Those two guys there. Elijah Blades played a lot as well, coming in and filling in for one of those guys. Mostly, I think it was the third drive of the game, and him and out there together. What I saw, but it was mix and match all throughout the game. No AR. We'll get into that too a little bit later on. But the game started exactly how we would want it to on both sides of the ball for the Gators. You couldn't ask for a better start for both sides of the ball here. So Tennessee gets the ball. Florida defers. Florida wins the toss, and just like last week versus Alabama, they defer to the second half. Look, that has worked for Florida in the past, trying to get that 2-for-1. We'll get into that. That was a big storyline in this game for me toward the end of the first half, beginning of the second half. But Florida defers. Tennessee starts with the ball, and it was just like, oh, okay, here we go. We know the problem Todd Grantham has with some up-tempo offenses and just slow starts in general. I was just like, well, okay, well, we'll see. I kind of agree with Mullen now with the whole deferring to the second half. I mean, the 2-for-1s have worked out so well historically since he's been head coach here at Florida. It's hard to necessarily really go against what he's trying to do in that situation. It almost worked out as we'll get into it. But Tennessee starts. Here we go. Defense forces the 3 and out. Oh, there we go. Let's go defense. We got that start we've been wanting, something we've been wanting to see from this defense. It's an up-tempo offense that Todd Grantham has had trouble with, and the Gators pitch a 3 and out on the first drive of the game. And especially after last week, good job. Job done. Tennessee goes nowhere in the first drive of the game. Florida gets the ball, responds with a touchdown their own, goes up 7-0. Pretty much a drive constructed by Emory Jones. The Gators couldn't get that ground game going with the running backs early. That was a storyline here about first drive as well. 10-play opening drive going 66 yards, where Emory Jones contributed for 24 yards on the ground, 20 yards through the air, including a 16-yard pass to Justin Shorter. Justin Shorter getting more involved this week. And then a 4-yard touchdown pass to Malik Davis for the 7-0 lead for the Gators. Drive was also aided by a face mask penalty on the Vols. So, all right, after last week versus Bama, and you worry about the hangover, Gators come out, 7-0 lead, get a 3 and out on defense. Both sides of the ball start well. Tennessee second of the drive, second is too easy for the Volunteers here. Explosive plays pretty much the whole drive. On this drive, Vols quarterback Hendon Hooker, 15-yard gain, running back Jabari Small on 3rd and 8. Vols didn't have a lot of success on 3rd down, but they did there on the second drive of the game. 3rd and 8, touchdown for Tennessee. Mari Burney in position to make the tackle at the line of scrimmage, misses in pursuit there. Then another tackle missed by Rashad Torrance. Evans for Tennessee goes on to score. Another situation, the defense in position, a lot like last week. They're in position to make a tackle, in position to make a play or limit a play, only to give up yards after the catch and yards after contact. And the Vols tied up at 7. So, 2 ways to look at that. Grantham's got him in position. That's on Amari Burney. That's on Rashad Torrance to make a play. Okay, there you go. Now, I guess you can argue, and I know a lot of you will, Amari Burney shouldn't be on the field all that often. But Florida's going to rotate those linebackers, Moon, Diabate, Burney, Hopper. Hopper got a lot of play this game as well, but Vols took advantage of Amari Burney being on the field there, and he does not make the tackle. So, that's just, if you don't blame the staff for putting the players into position. Players were in position. But if you want to maybe blame them for who they had out there at the certain time, but at that point, look, guys, it's on the players to make a play. And I'm not giving a pass for Grants. There were some big plays in that drive. But 3rd and 8, the guys are in position. It should have been a pretty short game for Tennessee. Amari Burney can't make the tackle. Rashad Torrance can't make the tackle. Touchdown, Tennessee. Gators respond with a field goal in the next drive, lead 10-7. And that was a drive doomed at the end by a false start to delay a game for the Gators after driving in a little bit. And look, you can't shoot yourself in the foot there, but 10-7 lead for the Gators on the drive right after. And look, I said the only way I saw Tennessee staying in this game, hitting the big play, and that's what they did to take the lead later on in the second quarter. Florida's avoided plays. The defense has avoided plays much like this much of the season. But Mordecai McDaniel, look, we all wanted to see it, man coverage, but he's in man coverage, gets caught looking in the backfield. Javonte Payton runs right by him. Easy pitch and catch there for Tennessee. 75-yard touchdown for Javonte Payton there for Tennessee. And Tennessee takes the lead 14-10 over the Gators. And, another thing where, that's on the player. He's back there looking, no need to have his eyes in the backfield. Tennessee's stacking the receivers there. Mullen even said it after the game. Your assignment there. Your assignment's not to look in the backfield. Your assignment is to play man to man on your receiver, and you didn't do it. You had your eyes in the backfield, gave up a big play, and you've been better in that regard this season. But one look into the backfield, slow to react to the pass already because the guy's already behind you. Easy pitch and catch there for Tennessee. Tennessee's leading 14-10. That would be the last points Tennessee would score of the day. But look at that. I mean, two big plays for the Vols, touchdowns in the first half. Those two plays amounted for 122 of the 261 yards in the first half. Two plays, 122 yards, 261 yards in the first half. They failed to score again in the second half or for the rest of the game. Defense was up and down the rest of the night for the Gators. Did play better, but also aided by some self-inflicted errors by Tennessee, and drops and missed throws and bad snaps. And now the big difference in the game was before halftime, and as clunky as the game looked, Florida had a chance to pretty much put the game away if the team executes the next few drives. And this is the storyline of the game right here. Florida could have pretty much put the game away in the first half if they had done some things right. Did some things right, didn't do everything right. And that's why it was a close game at halftime. But Florida gets the ball with 6:37 left in the first half on their own 41. Gators converted a 3rd and 5, hit a couple of explosives with a 20-yard catch from Xavier Henderson, then one more from Naquan Wright on a big 23-yard gain. Tennessee defenders there are lunging at his feet. Can't really make good contact. He goes on to score a touchdown. Look, that was the same drive, right? All he had to do was go beat one man. He slipped earlier in the drive there. So good, potential bigger play earlier in the drive, but he scores anyway. But Tennessee guy just lunging at his feet there. Can't really make good contact. Touchdown, Naquan Wright. Gators get the lead that they never give up. Great blocking on that play, too, by Emory Gamble and downfield by Xavier Henderson. As I said, same drive Wright slipped on earlier in the drive. Needed to make one man miss for a huge gain, possible longer touchdown. But the Gators leading 17-14 right there. And then, look, Tennessee gets the ball back with 4:07 left in the first half. Plan here. You guys, I just mentioned it earlier in the show. See if you can get the ball back before halftime. And see if you can get that 2-for-1 since you start with the ball after halftime. And that's what the Gators do. Defense steps up. Vols go 3 and out on a drive highlighted by Zach Carter's sack on 3rd and 8 and a bad snap there. Pressure was getting there anyway, but Carter bull rushes the tackle into the backfield, gets a sack there for the Gators. 3 and out for the Vols. Gators get the ball back, 3:16 left in the first half at the Tennessee 40. And this was after Tennessee had got called for targeting. That's separate, unsportsmanlike as well. Florida gets 30 yards and penalties there. Tennessee players ejected for targeting there. It's lining up for the Gators to get a score right here before halftime. Try and get that 2-for-1 there. Florida can't get the run game going early in this possession. Sets up a 4th and 2. Gators go for it. Dan Mullen calls up a beautiful play. Fake quarterback run. Emory finds a wide open Jacob Copeland. Copeland then has a group of Vols around him eventually. He's fighting for extra yards. Gets stripped, fumbles the ball. Vols are ripping at it. There you go. Turnover, deep going into score. Florida unable to put up points right before halftime to essentially put the game away as we know it played out. But look, a touchdown there puts the Gators up by 10 going into halftime. Doesn't happen. Florida goes into halftime up 17-14 after a clunky first half there. You had the turnover. Couldn't get the run game necessarily going with the running backs just yet. It was there, but not the powerful running we were seeing versus Alabama there. But, Tennessee we go into halftime here, 17-14 Florida. Tennessee with a 261 to 213 yard edge because of the big plays. Vols are averaging 8.7 yards in the first half compared to Florida's 5.8. Those two big plays. That was the game so far. Explosive plays, keeping the Vols in it. Also, defense went super conservative there that last drive before halftime. Pretty much, giving up yardage. So that played into it a little bit for stat padding. Florida got really conservative, dropping 8 guys into coverage there. Tennessee does that little pitch pass and gains a whole ton of yardage there. Pretty much letting Tennessee get into field goal range. That wasn't a plan, of course, but that's what happened. It let Tennessee get into field goal range. Luckily, they missed a field goal there. But, Florida, clunky first half, both sides of the ball just a bit. That turnover killed some momentum going into halftime. Tennessee misses that field goal. Defense gives up those big plays. So you're just like, okay, just go settle down. Go settle down at halftime. That's exactly what Florida did. We'll get into it. But Emory Jones at halftime. I mean, I haven't really discussed all this, but 12 of 15, 104 yards and a touchdown. He completed his last 5 passes in a row going into halftime. 9 carries, 41 yards in the first half as well. We know how big his legs were going into the second half. We'll get into all that too. But that's what it looked like at halftime. I thought, you could see some improvement there from Emory Jones in the first half going in to halftime there. Okay. Then comes second half. Tennessee gets shut out. Gators score 21 points. 28 unanswered dating back to the first half. Like I said, could have had even more. Jacob Copeland doesn't get strip fumble there. Good response by both sides of the ball in the second half overall for the Gators. But before we get to the second half, let's move forward a little bit. NFL talk. You guys are listening to hear on this on Sunday there, so you probably already got your bets in for this week's NFL action. But let's look forward a little bit. Next week, Tom Brady returns to New England for the biggest game of the year so far in the NFL, and the stakes have never been higher at MyBookie. Look, I know it's early in the week here, but whether you're backing the Bucks or the Pats on next Sunday, the game's always more exciting when you've got money on it, and you can do that at MyBookie. You get in on the action, take the game to a whole new level at MyBookie. Both teams right there are sporting top defenses. Nobody knows each other better than Brady and Belichick all those years together. Slow and steady will win this race. Smart money just might bet the under. Don't wait around. Join MyBookie now and get the biggest game and get in on the biggest game of the season. Use promo code Gators and double your first deposit. Again, that's promo code Gators to get your first ever deposit matched dollar for dollar. Do it at MyBookie and start your winning season today. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. All right, guys, let's get into the second half of Florida, Tennessee here. Gators didn't get that 2-for-1. Man, that's what you were looking for there at the end of the first half. But you did start the second half with that score anyway. You get the touchdown, quick 6-play drive capped off by the double pass from Emory to Trent Whittemore as Whittemore finds an open Kamori Gamble in the end zone for a touchdown. And, hey, that play looked familiar? It was. It was the same play in 2018 versus Mississippi State. Kadarius Toney finds Morrill Stevens in a very, very close game to win that game for Florida. But, yeah, same exact play there. But, look, this drive also highlighted by a beautiful throw from Emory to Justin Shorter for 33 yards, right over the shoulder, right to the breadbasket to beat the defender there. Gators now lead 24-14. Gators with a little tempo this drive as well, if you may have noticed. And Mullen getting in his bag play calling. I mean, starting with that play for Justin Shorter on the fourth down. It was a beautiful play. Mullen can't help that Justin Shorter get stripped there, but beautiful play design. Starting right there. I mean, Mullen started calling a masterful game the rest of the way. And look, the running back run game started a little bit slower than they wanted. And to me, I think it held the offense from getting in the groove that they probably were planning on getting on, but it eventually worked out. We know we'll get into the stats there, and you guys all saw the runs there. But that first drive of the second half, highlighted by the pitch and catch Emory to Justin Shorter, and then the double pass from Whittemore to Gamble. Gators up 24-14. Now the defense, man, I tell you, they come out just getting gashed in the run game on the first drive of the second half from Tennessee. Tennessee had runs of 10, 8, 6, 11 on this drive. And then on the 14th play of the drive, their first drive of the second half, 4th and 5 for the Vols. They had already converted 1 4th and 5 on the drive. The Vols run mesh routes. Avery Helm gets lost in coverage. Honestly, probably could have been a pick call on Tennessee. Gators catch a break, but another Tennessee receiver probably could have been called for a pick to me because it looked like he was clearly looking for contact, not running his route. Gators catch a break. Callaway drops the possible catch and run for a touchdown there as Helm got held up in that mesh route. Florida takes over right there. Catch a break, 4th and 5, Tennessee going for it, possible touchdown, but you catch a break. Has to happen sometimes. And look, Florida does what they needed to do to extend the lead, basically put the game away here on the following drive. Gators follow that up with an 8-play, 70-yard touchdown drive that takes 4 minutes, 5 seconds off the clock. Drive starts with a 13-yard pass to Rick Wells and then an Emory 24-yard run. That pass to Wells. Emory Jones sprints out to his right. Great pass to Wells on the sideline. Great concentration. Get a foot down for Wells as he's just fully sprinting towards the sideline. Great pass from Emory to Wells there. And then a nice read option by Emory and a little block by Zipper on the outside. Jones is tackled 24 yards later. Drives capped off by another beautiful play call from Dan Mullen. Jet sweep screen to Rick Wells is called. No balls even close to him on the third. It was 3rd and 1 play call from the 9-yard line. Tennessee defenders were trailing Wells the whole time. As soon as he motions, Tennessee can't catch up with him in the motion. Easy pitch and catch for the Gators. 31-14 right now for the Gators. Gators rolling, dominate the third quarter. 14-0 score in the quarter. 158 yards to the Vols, 82 yards in the third quarter. 11.3 yards for the Gators in the third quarter. 4.1 for Tennessee. That's the quarter that won the game for the Gators. So let's go. Moving on to the fourth quarter quickly here for this recap. Credit to the crowd here. Tennessee's first drive of the fourth quarter. 4th and 2 near midfield. Vols get a delay of game. Crowd's loud. Crowd's raucous, crazy, and credit to yourselves there. Delay game. They punt on 4th and 7 after they were going for it on 4th and 2. A little disappointed here on the Florida side of things. Florida takes over, gets that 49-yard Emory Jones run, another explosive run in the run game for the Gators, this time from Emory Jones. Florida had 1st and 10 at the Tennessee 38 after that play, end up punting after a sequence of an incomplete pass, 2-yard loss to Naquan Wright, then a false start penalty, then a 6-yard Emory run on 3rd and 17. Gators punt on the drive. Defense gives up first 3rd down on the next Tennessee drive. The Vols throw a couple yards short of the marker here, and this is where you want to see. This is kind of what we saw last week, kind of what we've seen all year. Tennessee, 3rd down. They get to their first 3rd down of this drive. Throw short, 2 yards short of the marker. Trevez Johnson, Jason Marshall give up yards after the catch, and the Vols get the first down. Gators settle down, though. On the drive, even after a face mask penalty. On the next play after the face mask, Tennessee tries a flea flicker. Pitch is fumbled. It wouldn't have mattered anyway. We got a player we haven't heard a whole lot from so far this year. Princely Human was in the backfield so fast, he would have had the sack anyway. In the same spot, Tennessee recovered that fumble. Great speed shown by him in beating his man. Look, Tennessee tried to block him with a tight end, and that's what you want to see from this young player, Princely, here. Tennessee thinks they can block him with a tight end. Clearly a mistake. Good play there by this second-year Gator. Led to Tennessee punting a couple plays later, 4th and 23. Good job by the defense to keep up there. Shaky start to the drive, but we're able to, with some young players, turn it around. Also, with that, it was Tennessee was, if they could keep it close there for they were going to be going for it, to try and stay in this game. But with that sack, after a couple successful plays and a face mask penalty, they've set up their pretty good field goal range. They're going to go for it in that situation. But it was 4th and 23 after that failed flea flicker, sack, fumble attempt there with Princely getting that. It ends up being 4th and 23. There's no way Tennessee can go for that. So you drove them back even further. Good job of the defense to keep it that far enough so Tennessee couldn't even try a 4th down conversion to try and get back into the game there. Tennessee punts. Next drive, Malik Davis completely takes over, puts together a touchdown drive that salt the game away too. 12 plays, 80-yard drive, takes 6 minutes and 20 seconds off the clock there for the Gators. That's exactly the type of drive you wanted to see there in the fourth quarter for the Gators. Malik Davis on this drive, back-to-back 4-yard carries on the first 2 plays. Then a 10-yard blitz beater from Emory finds him. Blitz is coming. Emory, that your hot read is Emory, Malik Davis in that situation. Easily finds him there, 10 yards. Then he gets a carry on the next play as well for Malik Davis, 7 yards there. So first 4 plays of the drive, that's 25 yards from Malik Davis on the first 4 plays. So it's only right. He caps off the drive. A few plays later, a couple of hop step broken tackles for another touchdown. His second of the night, and Florida leads 38-14. That will be the final score. there for the Gators. And look, Tennessee gets the ball back after that, and there's no hardly time on the clock there. They gained 65 yards on the final drive of the game, and I'm not going to count that all that much. People will look at the final box score and look at Tennessee's total yardage. And don't get me wrong, could Florida have played better on defense? Absolutely. But at 65 yards at the end, I'm not counting all that too much. Backups are in there. The game was over, essentially. Those yards count. Tennessee had 423 yards on the game. Take away that drive, Tennessee had 358 yards the rest of the game. Weigh that how you want. That's the way I'm going to look at it. I'm not counting that last drive all too much. You can if you want. I'm not telling you how to think there. But and also that first drive, that last drive at the end of the first half, too, Florida just dropping and being so conservative. You count those how you want to. It's not necessarily how Florida's going to play defense. But you still don't want to see Tennessee with over 400 yards. But I'll put some context to it, and you can go from there. All right, 38-14 victory for the Gators over the Tennessee Volunteers. All right, of course, let's get into some of the storylines of the game before we sign off here on Gators Breakdown. Emory Jones, getting better. Forcing the run game now. You have to account for him. Teams are going to really have to account for Emory Jones. And look, I thought that's something we would see in SEC play. First of all, helps the offense. Second of all, helps him, helps the running backs. It is a chain reaction there, getting a good quarterback run game as a threat. So many options back there for the Gators. Very unpredictable how the run game will go once you throw Emory Jones' legs in here as well. Scrambles on busted plays, but 15 attempts for 144 yards for Emory Jones to go along with 21 to 27 passing, 209 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Little conservative for him, of course, if you want to look at the numbers and the yardage, but he's now taking care of the ball. I think that comes with it, hopefully. The steps are being made. He played a good game. Hopefully the next step in his evolution, as we've seen so far in 4 games this season, he has gotten better. You can't deny that. Is he where a lot of you want him to be? Probably not, but he is getting better. He's we'll see what it means for moving forward. There's going to be some splitting time with Anthony Richardson, I believe, coming back, but still, now you have a good sample size of Emory Jones now, and the sample size is he's getting better week by week. Look, quarterback development is not cookie cutter. It's not going to be the same for every program. Would you like to see Emory Jones at the 4-year starter come in right away and the ball's flying and you don't have to worry about anything? Sure. But he hadn't played or hadn't started. These are his first starts. He's learning. He's progressing along the way. Steps are being made, and he played a good game. Look, more accurate over the middle. And that's something that stood out in this game to me that we haven't really seen too much going in, especially when you get back to the first couple games and going over the middle. The accuracy wasn't really there. The timing wasn't all that really there. So, look, still a little bit behind on timing and decision-making speed and not seeing open wide receivers while having some time. He could have even more yards sometimes if he would just taken it down just a little sooner ran. But, I mean, you're not going to be perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect. And go look at quarterback play right now across the nation. I mean, it's you start comparing Emory to some other quarterbacks out there right now, and it doesn't look that bad, guys. I'm telling you. But, still a little behind in timing, decision-making, not seeing receivers, while having some time, still missing some of the receivers. But he's getting better with each game. Let's just keep seeing these steps being taken by Emory Jones moving forward. Mullen, decided to hold off on Anthony Richardson for another week. Mentioning in post-game, he is cleared, but still had a little trouble accelerating and decelerating with that hamstring tightness. He could feel it just a little bit. Give him some more time off. Said that after the game, Richardson will be a full go at Monday's practice. So here we go. Stats for the team. I'll pull those up in a second as well on my end, but just a few that just stood out for me I took notes of. Tennessee averaged only giving up 54 yards a game on the ground. Gators had 283 yards rushing. Tennessee averaging 54 yards given up. The Gators had 283. No, there was some trouble getting the running back yards early, but once they had to respect Emory Jones' legs a bit more too, run game opened up. Shout out to the offensive line once again. Stuart Reese didn't play. Josh Braun steps in. Delance gets injured in the game. Tarquin fills in, plays well. Hopefully the late injury to Kingsley Eagleconn isn't serious. He's playing so well up front, up center. Had a question. New guy coming in at center. And what was going to be, this Florida offensive line starting there at center with Egglekon. I mean, you've got to be happy with what you've seen with that group so far. Hopefully, injuries are not piling up there. As we questioned if Florida even had, or many did. I thought their offensive line would play better this year, but many questioned if Florida even had 5 offensive linemen. You feel pretty comfortable with 7 right now, but you can't have these injuries start piling up there. So probably would have liked to see more backups there late in the game for the Gators, but is what it is. Hopefully not too serious injuries there for the Gators. Tennessee had only given up 3 rushes of 10-plus yards so far this season. Only 3 10-plus yard rushes this season. Gators had 10 such plays. 10 plays of 10 yards or more, 10 rushes of 10-plus yards for the Gators over the Tennessee. They had given up 3 all year. Gators had 10. Vols come in giving up 265 yards a game. Florida finishes the game with 505 yards. There you go. I mean, Gators putting it together there over Tennessee. And let's take a look at some of the stats here. I'll go through for the Gators here, of course. Can't forget Trent Whittemore, 1 for 1, 13-yard touchdown pass. 539 quarterback rating. There you go. Yes, that's a joke, guys. But Emory Jones, 21 to 27 again, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns there. As I say, conservative effort down. I mean, had some pretty passes down the field. But I know a lot of people want to see the push down the field a bit more in the passing game. It was a little conservative there. But look, he's not turning the ball over. In this game, first game without an interception there for Emory. So very, very good progression in that regard. Can it be related to be a little conservative with the ball? Yes, it can be, but don't want to see the interceptions. You can file that one away for a game without an interception for Emory Jones. Florida receiving, here we go. I mean, Rick Wells, 4 catches, 39 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, good for him, man. I mean, he'd been around the program, could have left at any time, not get any playing time, sticks it out, stays around Gainesville, and he may become, or may be now, Emory Jones' favorite target so far this year. There, he was targeted 6 times, 4 catches, 39 yards. Justin Shorter, best game of the season as well for him. 3 catches, 54 yards, a pretty 33-yard catch there from Emory Jones. He was targeted 7 times in this game. So can see the guys that he's going to be a different receiver every week. Hey, where's this guy? Where's that guy? Where's that guy? Well, Justin Shorter targeted 7 times here, 3 catches. Xavier Henderson, 3 catches as well for 36 yards. Copeland, 3 catches, 32 yards. Kamori Gamble, tight ends, no catches for the first couple weeks of the season. 3 more for Kamori Gamble for 29 yards. Malik Davis with 2, Damian Pierce with 2. For the running backs, Naquan Wright with 1, Trent Whittemore with 1 as well. 9 receivers catch passes for the Gators for 222 yards. Let's go rushing statistics, of course, as well. Emory Jones, 15 attempts, 144 yards, averaging 9.6 yards a carry. Basically a first down every time Emory Jones carried the ball versus Tennessee. Had that 49-yard run there from the quarterback position. Damian Pierce, 8 carries, 62 yards, 7.8 yards per average, or 7.8 yard average there for Damian Pierce. I mean, Damian Pierce with the shiftiness and the jukes out there versus Tennessee. I mean, if there was a one-on-one move to be made versus Tennessee and Damian Pierce was getting that one-on-one, he was making something happen out of it. So a little shiftiness, a little light-footed there moves there from Damian Pierce. And look, we're thinking of him as this physical bowling ball style of running back, but it was a couple of times last night versus Tennessee. He's showing some shiftiness and a little bit of, this could be nimble a little bit, Damian Pierce, and that's what he brought to the table. So I like seeing that from Damian Pierce, man. I mean, one of the best interviews you'll get in post-game or just any time there with Damian Pierce. And, big credit to him, too. Malik Davis as well, 10 carries, 45 yards. Big game for him. Touchdown catch, touchdown run. That touchdown run was something else, too. I mean, getting physical there I really want to give those guys a shout out. I mean, pretty much every week, Pierce and Davis, a lot of questions about those guys, a lot of questions about this run game, but every week now, just bringing something to the table. Naquan Wright as well, 7 attempts, 32 yards, 23-yard run for him was his longest, but Gators with some more explosive runs there. Keep piling up there. So for the game, Florida only 4 rushers there: Jones, Pierce, Davis, Wright. 40 attempts, 283 yards, 7.1 yard average there for the Gator rushing attack. Let's move to defense here. Some quick stats here for the defense. Trey Dean leading all the defenders. 11 total tackles there, 5 solo, 1.5 tackles for loss. Mahmoud Diabate, 8 tackles, 1 solo there for Diabate. Jeremiah Moon continues to play well at linebacker. 7 tackles, 3 of those solos. Tyron Hopper, 7 tackles as well. Amari Burney, Gervon Dexter, Daquan Newkirk, 5 tackles apiece. Brenton Cox here, you got to shout out to him for for a good night as well. 4 total tackles, but here it is, 2.5 tackles for loss. Now we like to still see, a couple of times setting the edge there overall for the Gators. I'm not just shouting out Brenton Cox here, but four tackles, 2.5 of those for loss. He had a really good game, 2 good games now back to back for Brenton Cox here. For the Gators, Princely Human comes in a good bit as well. 4 tackles there for the Gators for Princely. Finley Graham had 3 total tackles there, probably later in the game, of course. But Florida now, you have to wonder. I really do have to go back. I did a quick rewatch this morning for a lot of this, but also, where all these guys in the secondary filled in when they came in. As I mentioned, I saw Blades early. He had a nice big hit, too. I think it was on that same run, too, where I'm kind of remembering where defensive line didn't necessarily really set the edge all that well. Tennessee running back gets off to the left for a pretty big game, but Blades comes up and just lays the wood there to the Tennessee running back. So nice physical hit there from a cornerback. But I do want to go back and look at, kind of a rotation for cornerback, when and where the guys in. Like I said, Finley Graham with 3 tackles, but for all I know, remembering that could be, pretty late in the game when a lot of the backups ran, especially on that last drive there for the Gators. But so moving forward, we do have to see, look at the secondary in their play. It was, besides, you had the 2 huge plays for Tennessee, but Helm and Marshall, they held up pretty well. I mentioned the Helm play and getting caught up in the mesh route, and I really thought a pick could be called there, but Florida's gotten away with that too before. So, and that's a pretty popular play being run now because refs don't really call that pick all too consistently there. So a lot of coaches see what they can get away with there. But we know hopefully Elam's back. Mullen did say he will be probable for next week versus Kentucky. So in my mind, that means he's probably going to play there. You'll have him back along with Helm and Marshall. But look, good experience for those young defensive backs. You got to get the experience out there. And this was a big time atmosphere to go get it in, and you were thrusted out there. Now, this isn't throwing you out there just to see what you can put on tape. This was throwing you out there because you have to go play. You're starting cornerback. You're All-American cornerback not playing. Jaden Hill goes down preseason. Hopefully, at beginning of the season, we never would have went back and looked. Hey, Marshall Helm's going to be starting a game this season. I don't think most of us would have been taken to that too kindly, thinking that could happen. But here we are. Elijah Blades coming in and playing as well. So we'll see where it goes from here. We'll see if this game like this being thrust out there in that situation helps those guys. Of course, game can't replicate game reps, and that's exactly what these guys need. Rashad Torrance has got to get better as well. McDaniel, he was lost on the one man-to-man coverage and having his eyes in the backfield. So some growing pains for these young guys, and that's going to happen. You throw a lot of young guys out there. The growing pain, you're going to see the growing pains live and in color on TV or in the stadium. And it's going to happen. They're not going to just be thrusted in there and expect to go lock down everybody. There's some reasons for the big plays for Tennessee, some reasons for the lapses in defense, but some of those lapses were up front. Inconsistent performance up there by the defensive line, especially what we saw last week after Alabama. Now, and of course, can you ramp that up week after week? And they're probably somewhere along the way an expected drop in energy and production there. You don't want to see it, but kind of just it happens. Now, defensive line. Playing out of position, not playing out of position, getting out of position for the interior of that defensive line sometimes led to some big Tennessee runs. Their offensive line in spurts controlled the defensive line. I'm not expecting the defensive line to go out there and go get a tackle for loss every play. That's just not realistic there for any defensive line right now in today's college football. But after what you saw versus Alabama last week, holding them under 100 yards rushing, their talent profile, and then Tennessee comes in here, runs the ball probably better than you expected, probably better than the Gators expected as well. So just a little more consistency. This kind of reminds me, Tennessee's got much more talent than USF and FAU. Kind of remind me of those type of games, but with just a little bit better talent. So you can see why, Tennessee's able to do a little bit better than those couple of teams. But the performance kind of reminded me of that. The defensive line would kind of feast or famine a bit, more feasting against those opponents, but also against Tennessee. But you can see where maybe a little bit higher talent profile and you're not being up every play can see what it can lead to. So, we'll see where this defense goes from here. I just think got to be ready. I mean, I know Kentucky hasn't looked good the last couple of weeks, but still will be a physical offensive line, physical presence there. You just see that offensive line play mostly like they did against Alabama, not like they did against Tennessee. All right, let's get into. I bookmarked a couple of tweets from you guys here last night when you sent when I just kind of posted good clunky performance for the Gators in there. I'm just gonna share a couple of there's 3 responses here from Twitter. Rob says we dropped 38 and feel like we played like trash for the first half. Thank God the Shark days have ended. So of course a shot at Jim McElwain there. Dropped 38, of course. I think scored more on Tennessee this year than you did last year. So, I think a lot of people probably forget that aspect, but it did happen. Florida very clunky, inconsistent first half. Could have put up another touchdown if Copeland doesn't strip fumble there. So, but you saw how it played out. CT82 at There Is No Plan. He goes, I'll take it. It was a classic trap game. And we got a solid, like you said, clunky win. Previous 2 coaches would have lost this game. And look, and I'll go to that part too. I saw a lot of talk in the stadium, on Twitter as well. It's just like, why can't you put the performance? Why can't you put the throat? Step on the throat of a team like Tennessee and Kentucky and Vanderbilt, Missouri is of the SEC. Why you let those teams hang around a bit? And like CT82 says, after last week, you did worry about the Bama hangover. And maybe it was some kind of trap game, and you still scored 38 points, and it's a 38-14 final when you really didn't play your best. And now we're at the point now, and kind of like last year too. You don't want to see it sneak up on you and cost you a loss. But I mean, 38-14 in the SEC, you didn't really play your best, but it's still a 38-14 victory. I mean, the game wasn't really all that close in the second half. Once Florida got rolling, I mean, you didn't play your best and still won 38-14. I think there's something to be said for that as well. Last one here, Pierre Vogelbacher says, Emory played well. That was a very quiet 144 on the ground. D had 2 busted plays for touchdowns, some spotty tackling for a bit. Impressed with how they came out, took care of business in the second half. So there we go. Everybody, thanks for replying to the Twitter post last night about the game and the score. But all in all, I think, like I said, good performance there for the team. Nice to see Emory Jones' progression keeping up. Nice to see this run game continuing, and maybe not at the level that you saw last week versus Alabama. But look, some drop was probably going to be expected. I mean, come on. I mean, the crowd wasn't even as loud as it was versus Alabama. So, I mean, it just it goes hand in hand a little bit. Some drop was probably going to be expected. It was a little bit of a drop. You still scored 38 points. You only let Tennessee get two big plays for 14 points. Shut them out the rest of the way. So, good win for the Gators, something that you can also learn from, build on as you move forward throughout the rest of the year. Will Miles and I, of course, will have more. We'll dive into the game a little bit more as well. Hopefully get another rewatch in between here and there. But, Will and I will have some more thoughts on the game on Monday. But before we get to the end of this episode, let's take a look around the SEC. And, man, there's some crazy games yesterday, even all around college football there, of course. But we'll take a look here in the SEC. Georgia 62-0 over Vanderbilt. They had no issue whatsoever with the Commodores. That game was over about at kickoff for the Bulldogs. No, we didn't expect anything, but dominating performance there from the Bulldogs, 62-0 over Vanderbilt. LSU 28-25, Mississippi State came back a little bit in that game, but LSU, everybody kind of wondering about this game and how they would respond and how they would play there for LSU. But 28-25 winners over Mississippi State. Then Missouri takes another loss, their second loss of the season, lost to Kentucky a couple weeks ago, and now lose to Boston College 41-34. Take that trip to Chestnut Hill, go to overtime, and lose to Boston College 41-34. Game of the day that was headlined there in the SEC, Arkansas beats Texas A&M 20-10. Good win for Arkansas. Momentum building for that program a little bit. Texas A&M's quarterback problems, of course, but still a good win for Arkansas, a team that nobody was really expecting much from this year. And here they are under Sam Pittman, and get a big top 10 victory over Texas A&M, 20-10 in the neutral site there in Dallas. Auburn had to storm back in the fourth quarter to beat Georgia State 34-24. Georgia State was in the lead the entire game, most of the game, even midway through the fourth quarter. But Auburn comes storming back, ends up winning by 10, 34-24 over Georgia State. Of course, there you see it, Hero YouTube version, 38-14 Gators over Tennessee. Kentucky, Florida's opponents next week, 16-10 winners in Columbia over South Carolina. That was a close game all throughout. There, of course, of 13-7 for most of the game, I think it was, for Kentucky over South Carolina. But they get another SEC win there for Kentucky, and will host the Gators. I believe that's already been determined, 6 o'clock next Saturday on ESPN. And then Alabama, their win over Florida last week, they respond with a 63-14 victory over Southern Miss. So there we go. There's your look around the SEC. Week 4. Man, will the season slow down, please? Just slow down. Already moving kind of fast here, but no. Come on now. Come on. Slow down a little bit. But here we are, quarter through the season already. Florida 3-1 headed into the game versus Kentucky next week. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Everybody here live on YouTube, thank you so much there for joining live every Sunday. You guys here, consistent. And I know my time's not consistent, but when we're going live, but you guys show up regardless. So thank you so much. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out here on Gators Breakdown. Everybody else, thank you so much too for all the listens, all the views, all the interaction. Like I said earlier on, I couldn't do it without you guys. So here we are. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.